Okay, good morning. Good morning, Nebraska, and welcome to the 2020 AFAN annual meeting. I'm Steve Martin. I'm the Executive Director for AFAN, and want to thank you for spending part of your day with us here today. We're excited to share our accomplishments from this past year. Crazy year, we all know that, and we're really looking forward to really a brighter future, things coming up in 2021. And we've set the groundwork. We've really used this year to work through some of maybe our challenges and what we're working on. So the agenda for today, we have a opening statement from Nebraska Department of Agriculture Director Steve Wellman. We'll do an AFAN and WSA update. And then we'll also do the Leopold Conservation Award presentation. We'll take a short break, 5 to 10 minutes, kind of depends on how we're doing through the morning. And then we'll come back with a young producer panel. And we've got 4 young livestock producers that are going to talk about how they got into the industry, what their successes are, what their challenges are. Really looking forward to hearing what they have to say. And then we'll round out the day with some words from Governor Pete Ricketts, and then we'll close shortly before noon. So with that, I would like to welcome Director Steve Wellman to turn on his camera, and he's got a few remarks for us. Thank you, Director, for being here today. Good to see you.
Yeah, Steve, it's great to be here, and hopefully the sound's coming across okay.
Sounds good to me.
Great. Well, thank you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody here today at the AFAN and WSA meeting. I want to start off with a big thank you to Steve and the team for all the great work that you all do and have done in the past and continue to do. So AFAN's work to support and facilitate the growth of Nebraska livestock is extremely important to our state's economy, rural Nebraska, and our consumers. But to me, the most important part is the beneficiaries of your work, and that's the farmers and ranchers that you all assist and support every day in your work. You have a 15-year record of keeping farmers and ranchers, helping them reach their goal of growing livestock production and processing. So thanks for all your past work, and we will support you in the future. Certainly, these efforts fit right in with Governor Ricketts' vision to grow Nebraska and to add value to our agricultural products. And as I approach the start of my 4th year serving as a Nebraska Director of Agriculture, I can positively say that we will continue to support AFAN's work in facilitating additional growth of the livestock sectors. Along with promotion and development, another aspect of livestock production that the Nebraska Department of Agriculture is deeply involved in is animal health protection and animal health disease traceability. To help us in this effort, we propose legislative changes to our statutes in the form of LB 344. The Animal Health and Disease Control Act was passed by the unicameral, signed by Governor Ricketts earlier this year, and became law effective on November 14th. I know many of you here today supported that legislation, and we appreciate your support, and I thank you for that support to get that bill passed. It was a much needed modernization to our statutes. I believe the general powers that are provided in that law will be very helpful for us when responding to livestock disease issues. Another step that we took to be prepared, our livestock team is currently looking at current structure to determine what changes we need to make to be able to support Nebraska's livestock sector in the future. We're all very aware of that COVID created a processing and supply chain disruption earlier this year. Although this is certainly not the same as a response to an animal disease, I believe we got to look at what it might be like to respond to a foreign animal disease outbreak. And watching other states respond to the situation where market-ready livestock could not be moved to market was really an eye-opening experience. And even with all the preparation work that I know our state has done and other states and USDA have been involved with, and the tabletop exercises that have occurred over the previous years, I think quite frankly, we found out that we're not necessarily prepared to respond fully to a livestock disease outbreak, and we're going to need help. The Nebraska Department of Agriculture, we have 8 veterinarians on staff throughout the state, and we have a livestock team supporting them yet too. But we really seen the need and the manpower that it takes to respond to something like the COVID incidents, and I think that was a good indicator of what it's going to take to respond to a livestock disease. We already do have the Livestock Emergency Disease Response System, leaders, in place, and this effort began in 2002 actually, and consists of veterinarians across the state and others that are committed to responding to an agricultural emergency. We currently have over 100 members of leaders, and we always appreciate them volunteering, but we're looking for more volunteers. So anybody interested in leaders and participating in that, please let me know. We also are looking at our current NDA structure. And to do that, we took a look at the livestock sector in Nebraska now in 2020 and what it was in 2015. And we've seen that there's significant growth across the state and across the species. So yeah, I have a couple slides here, and thanks for putting that up. This first slide is just a summary of 2015 stats and 2020. You can see all cattle and calves have grown from 6.3 million to 6.8. Breeding cows has increased, cattle on feed has increased, and I will mention that this includes beef and dairy cattle on these numbers. And the pork sector, they've certainly grown too. And when you total it all up, we're looking at over a million head increase in 5 years. So I think that's a great indicator of what Nebraska is well suited for. I think we have more opportunities for livestock growth in Nebraska, but this is something we're looking at from the cattle and pork sector. The next slide is a closer look at the poultry growth in Nebraska, and from USDA and NASS, we don't have quite as in-depth and detailed numbers on the poultry sector, but this is our best estimate of using their numbers and trying to take a look at what's actually been taking place in Nebraska. And you'll see that the total layers has maybe decreased some since 2015, but man, our hatchery egg production is just grown tremendously. And I think one other thing to look at in 2015, and I picked this year for a little bit of a reason, because in 2015 we had the high path avian influenza, and we lost 2.55 million chickens out of that year. So we started out with 9.5 million layers, and by the end of the year it was just over 7 million. So I think that shows the impact that certainly that livestock or animal diseases could have on our livestock sector. When we look a little deeper, and I don't know whether you have that third slide there, Steve, or not, with the notes. And so just to explain that a little bit more, with the growth in the hatcheries has been through Lincoln Premium Poultry and Hendricks. Hendricks has 2 hatcheries, one in Beatrice, one in Grand Island. And then when we look at broiler inventory, we don't really have that from NASS, like I mentioned earlier, but we know that LPP is processing 2 million birds per week. And we also have Tyson Smart Chicken broiler production, and they're currently expanding in the state. So I think as we plan for the future, using this information and just trying to estimate what we will have growing in Nebraska in the future, we really need to keep in mind that life certainly has a way of handing us so many unexpected challenges and opportunities. And even our best efforts of planning and focusing on our priorities often get shifted or completely flipped over from what we expect. The constant positive for me and thankfully for Nebraska is the persistent response and productivity driven by our farmers and ranchers in Nebraska. Agriculture is the heart and soul of our state, with over 45,900 farms and ranch families that keep pumping life throughout the state year after year. Once again, Nebraska agriculture has delivered an abundant, safe, healthy, and sustainable supply of food, feed, and fuel to Nebraska consumers and consumers around the world. Nebraska agriculture continues to be our largest economic driver and job creator by supporting 1 out of every 4 jobs and delivering over $21 billion worth of gross receipts annually. Ag production supports jobs, but those jobs, individuals in those jobs support agriculture. And we really do all need each other. I think we knew that already, but the impacts of COVID-19 brought that reliance upon each other to the forefront for our business communities and for our food supply. And it's important to remember what we learned here in the past and to use those lessons in the future. I think taking a look at where we are currently, where we've been in the past, and looking forward to the future from what we can do from the Department of Agriculture standpoint, and certainly relaying that to Governor Ricketts and asking for his support for livestock sector. We'll certainly continue to do that, and we'll continue to be supportive of AFAN, and we support agriculture as we move ahead. Thanks, Steve.
All right, thank you, Steve. Quick question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think we all recognize the great resources that Nebraska has to offer and see the growth curve, as you pointed out, in livestock numbers. And we know we can't eat all that here. So your department does do quite a bit of trade work, both nationally and internationally. Can you touch on what your efforts are today and going forward?
Yeah, sure. Appreciate that. Certainly, we've been very active in the international trade efforts. 2020 has put the brakes on that as far as in-person meetings, but we still continue to reach out to our cooperators like USMEF, the Meat Export Federation, the Grains Council, Soybean Export Council. We continue to work with them. We hosted a roundtable with the UK here that many members of the ag community participated in this year, and we're hopeful for 2021. Whatever we had planned here in 2020, the governor's ag trade mission to South Korea and the Philippines, that's on the agenda for 2021. We certainly hope that we get to carry that out, but we are working on some other virtual meetings in case we can't be there in person. Japan is still our leading export market. Mexico, with over $1 billion worth of ag exports, and Mexico is right up there, close to $1 billion of export products from Nebraska also. And I'll point out that we had some excellent growth in beef exports to Vietnam and pork exports from Nebraska also. So I think there's opportunities there. One other bright spot for sure is the beef from Nebraska to the European Union. Of all of the U.S. beef going to the EU, over 60% of it comes from Nebraska. So congratulations to the Nebraska feeders and the exporters and those that are actually involved in getting that market secured. Great work, and we're here to be supportive of any way that we can.
Excellent. Yes, that's very helpful, and we appreciate that. And again, thank you, Director Wellman, for being here with us this morning. Thank you for the congratulations on our 15 years. And for anybody that doesn't know, Nebraska Department of Agriculture also serves as an ex officio member of the AFAN board. And so we appreciate your support and involvement in our mission and direction. So thank you for your time this morning.
You bet. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So that was an interesting and encouraging look at growth in livestock numbers here in Nebraska. Sometimes we focus on the doom and gloom of the day, and maybe that's what's presented in the news, but sometimes it helps to step back and really look at, what were our accomplishments this past year. And while we're not going to dwell or rest on our laurels, it's good to recognize what we've done and what we are working towards. So with that, we're going to shift into an AFAN update, and then we'll round that out with a WSA update. So first of all, the AFAN update, if you would like to see our annual report, that is on our website, becomeafan.org. That's something viewable. And so if you'd like to take a look, feel free. As Steve mentioned, this is our 15th year of being in existence. September 26th of 2005 is when AFAN was formally formed. Formed by leading ag organizations here in Nebraska with the idea that using our crops and using our resources here in the state, developing the livestock industry was a way to develop the rural economy for the betterment of the rural communities. And so that is really our mission, to grow the livestock industry in Nebraska. There's quite a few different ways that we do that, and we'll kind of work through some of those today. But I want to go back and just do a little highlight on the year. Start the year, we had some dairy recruiting trips. We were in Tulare, California. We also went to the International Dairy Foods Association Dairy Forum. That's a great event in that it's a lot of CEOs and upper level management from dairy processing companies. And we're able to sit down with them, talk about what their goals are, how Nebraska could fit into what they're doing. And it's a very open event too, as far as the conversations, and really helps to guide our Grow Nebraska Dairy efforts. As I mentioned, dairy processing is something that we've been working on for quite a while. The limitations of the dairy industry in Nebraska is really where to go with milk. So adding another processor in Nebraska, or at the very least in the region, would help to be able to let our Nebraska dairy farmers expand, and also any new dairy farm that wants to relocate to Nebraska, create an opportunity for them. Some other dairy related highlights for the year. Recently, we had our 4th robotic dairy go online up in Northeast Nebraska. Very exciting to see that type of production coming online. Typically, those are 120 cow. There's relatively small dairies, but with the use of robotics and technology, it allows a farmer a little more freedom because things are automated and they can work through that. And that was Ashoff's robotic dairy farm. We also, another area that we've recognized in the dairy industry that we can really have some growth potential is in calf raising and heifer development. We haven't seen huge growth in the calf raising yet, but on the heifer development side, we've had some growth there. Recently, Marshland Acres, which is a Wisconsin company, but also had a location near McCook. They were at about 5,000 head roughly in that lot, in that facility, and they had enough demand that they found a different partner up by Hershey and have expanded to where they can take up to 30,000 head in that facility. And so that's an area where we definitely see some growth as dairy farmers in the upper Midwest look to bring heifers out of that area, out of that weather and cold, put them in a place that's a little warmer, a little drier, but still good quality feed. And that's where Nebraska has an opportunity. We had our inaugural pork expo this year. It was set to be in York. With the events of the day, we decided to take it virtual. We still had about 120 people attend that event and hear from experts as well as integrators on what the opportunities for pork production is in Nebraska. And from the slides that you saw from Steve Wellman, there is growth in the pork industry, and we have some real opportunity to continue with that growth. We also saw the Lincoln Premium Poultry Project pass their 1-year anniversary, and at about the same time they hit 100% capacity. And so we've celebrated that with them. That has been a great success, and as we see that project go, you could take a look. I think it was the Fremont Times, the Fremont newspaper anyway, had an article last week about their methane capture project, and they were able to capture methane, or they're going to be able to capture methane from the city resources, but plus the LPP project and the Holstone project, which is just across the road from LPP there in Fremont. They're projecting profit of about $700,000 to the city every year based on the amount of methane they can capture and put back into the pipeline. So we hear all these stories of, you know, what projects bring, but sometimes it's hard to account for all the side benefits. We still continue to see growth in beef. That is, I guess, definitely something that we ran into with COVID, and all the small lockers filled up as people decided to maybe have their own beef processed, or animals, even hogs. But we've seen a real interest in building new packing facilities. Some of them are very small, some of them are more ambitious. We'll see where that goes, but definitely a positive for the state. And the last thing I wanted to mention, this year, one of the changes we are working on, and you'll see it very soon as AFAN partners, is a change in our annual membership renewal or partnership renewal. And we've talked about AFAN members, we've talked about AFAN partners, and we really prefer partners because that means we're engaged with you. It means that we're not just out there doing the work, but we really do have a partnership. And as we work through some of these projects, the work that we do, we could not do without all of you supporting us, both financially and with other resources, knowledge, all of that. So as we come into 2021, we're going to be sending out partnership renewals they'll actually go out the 1st of December for 2021, but we're going to do just an annual renewal based on calendar year. It will simplify our bookkeeping. Hopefully it'll simplify things for you too, because it's just the first of the year it comes up. So you'll be seeing that, and we'll move forward with that, with being a little bit more efficient. So the next person I'd like to introduce is the newest member to our team. Chris Bosque is the Director of Livestock Development. Chris came to us from the dairy industry, and I'm going to let him tell all about himself and what he's working on.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Appreciate the introduction. And I just want to let everybody know that I am extremely excited to be a member of the AFAN team, not just because of the great people that they have working for them, but I wholeheartedly believe in the work that they do for the farmers and the partners that they work with. And obviously, being the new guy, I wanted to make sure that I get to know everybody a little bit. So I wanted to share something about myself and where I want to take this role in 2021. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Next slide. So this is where I grew up. This is a 7 herringbone parlor in South Sioux City, Nebraska. I guess you could say I got to spend some quality one-on-one time with our cows in this place. And by grow up, I truly mean it. A lot of great memories and teachings happened in this parlor, a lot of family bonding. But you know, one thing that is apparent is just how you develop the appreciation for livestock. And it's something that I'll carry through for the rest of my life, is just that one-on-one work with cattle and livestock, and how they really impact you as a person, and just ingrain the passion in your soul. And so a little bit about my family operation. We milked roughly 150 Holstein, Brown Swiss, and Jerseys, kind of a mixed affair there. We farm roughly 4,000 acres and have 300 or so cow-calf pairs, Black Angus, Simmental, you name it, crossbreds. And then we also operate a little bit of a trucking company. And yeah, like I said, you know, I'm probably not alone in saying that it just ingrains, the passion for agriculture gets ingrained in you. And so, later on in my life, when I graduated high school, I know I wanted to study agriculture. And the issue was I didn't have any money to pay for it. And so when I talked to my parents about it, they said, well, you're going to have to figure out a funding source. And so in August of 2009, I joined the Nebraska Air National Guard. And so I currently hold the rank of technical sergeant, and I'm an aircraft mechanic on the KC-135 Stratotanker, which is the aircraft that you see behind you there. Matter of fact, that picture was taken in Ramstein, Germany. And so that is a good friend of mine, Jared Stubadek, who's also a crew chief. But I can honestly say that aircraft that I work on can actually make it across the ocean, so that should be comforting. But you know, it's truly been an honor to work for Nebraskans on behalf of the Nebraska Air National Guard, and as well as the United States, and multiple deployments in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and Odyssey Dawn. And I owe a lot of who I am today to the military. Really just kind of molds you as a person and matures you over time. And so during my early years of service, I was able to earn a bachelor's degree, so a bachelor's of science in applied science, which is basically a long way of saying diversified agriculture. And I met my wife, Michelle, while I was in college, and we welcomed Briggs, our son, April 7th of this year into the world. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And so it was right smack dab in the middle of COVID, so I'm sure you guys can probably imagine how that went. But after college, I really wanted to keep working in agriculture and mainly work with farmers, because I just had a really good relationship with farmers over the years. And so I began working for DFA, as a Dairy Farmers of America, which is a milk marketing cooperative, as a field rep. And I worked one-on-one with dairy farmers, just trying to make sure that quality was upheld and maintained good standards, and stayed within the local state requirements on bacteria, as well as antibiotic residue and things like that. And then also stayed in compliance with federal regulations as well. And so the big thing that I took away from this opportunity was those one-on-one relationships that I built with farmers. And so, after working a few years with farmers, I knew I wanted to continue that relationship. And so I accepted a position with Midwest Dairy Association, which is the Nebraska Dairy Checkoff organization, and started a role as their farmer relations manager. And so I worked, again, one-on-one with farmers, building demand for the product. And during that time, I was also honored to serve the Nebraska dairy industry as the executive director of the Nebraska State Dairy Association. And so during that time, I worked directly with Steve Martin and the AFAN team to grow the dairy industry in Nebraska. And during my time working to that goal, I knew that if going to work with AFAN would definitely would fit into some of my strengths and where I wanted to go with my career. And luckily, the Nebraska State Dairy Association Board of Directors also thought it was a great idea. And so they decided to partner with AFAN moving forward. So November 1st, the NSDA partnered with AFAN, and so I will maintain my role as the executive director of the NSDA, and also while in this role as director of livestock development. I know it's a little confusing, but it's a big win for both organizations. I think I know I'm extremely excited about it, and I know the farmers are too. So keeping in mind my passion for working with farmers, in 2021, you can please go to the next slide. I really want to be able to expand on that and help farmers incorporate livestock into their operation. And, by capitalizing on this livestock expansion effort, I want to make sure that our efforts are known, mainly on the services that we can provide. And so what I would like to do is make sure that our farmers know that we can work directly one-on-one with you to see if livestock actually fits in your operation. And we can also work, with planning and zoning and prepping for public hearings. Mainly anything and everything along the way of your project, we can help you with. And so I think probably the one that is best utilized right now is that coaching for public hearings and really getting out there and I guess establishing a grassroots effort to educating not only your public officials but your neighbors, so that when the time comes, the process goes pretty easily. And so another option that we really want to capitalize on moving forward is directly working with our partners that we have and getting your business model and your efforts of your livestock production opportunity out there so our farmers know that they have options. And so things that we can do for our partners are, lunch and learns or something similar to that, to where you can really have the floor and we can have the floor to try to talk to the people that could be interested. And just some other things, opportunities that we have are, similar to our pork expo, which is scheduled for July 21st. I think that was an extremely successful event last year, and we're going to keep building on that momentum moving forward, so we can try to show some of these people that incorporating livestock is extremely beneficial. I think another thing that we can really play a key role in is connecting our partners with our farmer friends. And so we want to enable that opportunity with some networking opportunities, such as a golf outing potentially in June. And last but not least, we want to work to inform our local leaders. So by doing that, we want to have some ag tours. So we'd like to work with our farmer friends out there to give our elected officials some firsthand knowledge, not only our elected officials, but industry bankers, industry leaders or city leaders from across the area, some firsthand modern day agriculture experience to build that grassroots effort. And so all in all, I really just want to be a service to you, our partners and our farmers, in any ways I possibly can. And I just want you to know that I'm committed to helping you capitalize on your goals and incorporating livestock in your operation. And so please feel free to reach out to me, to my email address or my phone number. You can reach me at chrisb@a-fan.org or 402-525-3199. And so, with that, I would like to turn it over to another team member that is committed to helping you capitalize on your goals. That's Riley Stoltz, the Director of Communications for AFAN. And so, Riley, I'll turn it over to you.
Chris. Good morning. I'm Riley Stoltz, and I'm the Director of Communications for AFAN. Despite those circumstances over the last year, our team has been able to do several different projects that we maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise. This is AFAN's 15th anniversary, so at the beginning of the year, we decided to offer a scholarship to 15 different students involved in ag across our state to celebrate. And I would like to take some time and recognize those students. Okay, Nathan Burnett is from Shelton, majoring in the livestock industry management and ag business at the Nebraska College of Technical Ag in Curtis. Courtney Nelson is from Monroe, and she's majoring in mechanized systems management at UNL. Sarah Eberspacher is from Beaver Crossing, majoring in ag and environmental sciences at UNL. Brianna Gable is from Waverly, majoring in ag economics at UNL. Maria Hartthorne is from Ainsworth, and she's majoring in ag economics at UNL. Marissa Kegley is a grad student from Kearney, majoring in vet medicine at UNL. Corbin Kudera is from Clarkson, and he's majoring in agronomy at UNL. Morgan Leifers is from Odo, majoring in ag economics at UNL. Olivia Leasing is from Arapahoe, majoring in Ag Sciences at Concordia University in Seward. Sydney Linneman is from Princeton, majoring in Ag Economics at UNL. Tyler Quick is from Alliance, and he's majoring in Ag Education and Horticulture at UNL. Jacob Ross is from Gothenburg, and he's majoring in agronomy at UNL. Kara Velasic is a grad student from Palmer High School and is majoring in vet medicine at UNL. Alexandra Volchowski is from Wilcox, majoring in Ag and Environmental Sciences at UNL. And Michael Wolf is from Palmer High School, majoring in Animal Science or Pre-Vet at UNL. Aside from the scholarship, we also held a photo and video contest for Nebraska FFA students and a food pantry grant for qualifying Nebraska food pantries. During the beginning months of COVID, it was brought to our attention by Midwest Dairy that many food pantries have no way to store or offer perishable items. Because of this, we teamed up with Nebraska Department of Ag to offer grants up to the amount of $4,000 to purchase a refrigerator or freezer based on the needs of the food pantry. In total, we were able to offer grants to 39 food pantries, which in turn serve around 50,000 people. The past year, I have taken over all of our communication and marketing efforts. With that being said, if any of our partners are ever looking for content such as written articles or publications about who AFAN is or what we're working on, please feel free to reach out to us. Our goal is to do more articles and open houses in the coming year. Also, if you do not already follow us on social media, please find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. At this time, I would invite Steve back to give a brief update on WSA.
Thank you, Riley. And I just want to, before we get into the WSA update, mention our fourth team member, and that is Mindy Ricks. Mindy took over as the staff assistant in July this summer, and just amazing talent, doing a great job for us. She has a lot of capabilities with being able to assist Riley with her work, as well as some of the bookkeeping and things like that that really help take some jobs off of other people's plates and really allow us to focus more on the things that we really want to focus on. All right, so a quick update from We Support Ag. This past year, and this is sort of, I guess, blended, but this past year, the AFAN board and staff undertook a strategic planning process. As we worked through that, one of the things that we really discovered is that the strengths that we have work best if we work as support for our board members, especially in their lobbying efforts under WSA, rather than being in that lead position as we have done in the past. So what that means is that as WSA, or as there are issues that our partners come up with, they can come to us. We'll work with our board members to get those into position for resolution. So our role really has been, and it's really to our strength, is to be in that support position. So if you want to see more about We Support Ag, you can go to the We Support Ag website, which is just wesupportag.org. The annual report is there. It's also on the AFAN website as part of that combined effort. So now I'd like to turn our attention to a different partnership that we're very proud to be part of, and that is the Leopold Conservation Award. And so I'd like to have Homer Buell, Sandhills Rancher, and also Craig Utter, the Nebraska Conservation Award representative for the Sand County Association. So I'll let you guys take it away.
Well, thank you, Steve. We appreciate it very much, you giving us the opportunity to present at your annual meeting, and it's a wonderful venue, a little bit different venue this year, but works well, and it gives us the opportunity to showcase our new winners each year at your meeting. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It's always a pleasure to be a part of the AFAN annual meeting. For some of those folks out there who may not be familiar with the Leopold Conservation Award, we've been involved here in Nebraska for quite some time, but it's also part of a bigger initiative. And I think what we'll do right now is run a quick video to give everybody an update on what the Leopold Conservation Award is.
Did you get it?
No, it's coming through.
It's quite an honor to be recognized as a Leopold Conservation Award winner.
For me, conservation became not just a set of constraints, but it became a very positive part of my life that involved skill and learning to understand what the land could handle.
It's a balance between sustaining the productivity and health of the land and exploiting the land for pure profit.
What we do here affects people miles and miles and miles away. So it's really a stewardship issue.
You know, we've taught all our kids that it's important to take care of things. What we have, we need to take care of.
Our duty is to pass every speck of land on to future generations in a better condition than what we found it.
We're going to be farming for the rest of our life, but we got to hand this off to somebody else. I think we've made huge improvements, especially in the last 4 to 5 years, but we still got a long way to go. And if we don't continue that, we're not going to have another generation to be able to take that over.
My goal is to remember where we came from and to tie that heritage in with our new ideas and innovation that we're bringing into the farm. And that's why every decision that we make here ties back to how does this affect the environment that not only we depend on, but also our entire community.
I think the important part of having the responsibility of taking care of the land is your award in the end.
Look at that piece of land as your portrait and statement of yourself, and try to understand how you and the land together as partners can do better.
My dad gave me a copy of a Sand County Almanac, and he said, "This belonged to your grandmother. I'm going to give it to you, and it's much like the Bible. It's full of truth. Your responsibility is to find that truth."
And as you can see, the Leopold Conservation Award in 2020, there are current or upcoming programs in 25 states across the nation. Within these states, there are 148 recipients either owning or managing over 2.9 million acres. Now that's an area that's larger than Yellowstone. And these only really constitute the folks that in the end were the recipients of the award. And we know that every state that we do this award in has multiple applicants that were just as deserving. So Sand County Foundation is proud to give recognition and support to these farmers and ranchers in an effort to improve their environment, improve agriculture, and their own communities. And Sand County Foundation has been working in Nebraska for over 15 years. And Homer, I'll kind of turn that over to you.
We seem to be having a little trouble right now with me being able to start my video, but I will go ahead, Craig. On your screen now, you should have a picture. I don't have it on mine. There it is, a picture of our 15 different award winners through the years that we have offered that award here in Nebraska. A couple of things really jump out at me when I see this slide is we've really covered the state from north to south and east to west. Our first award winner, the Wilsons, were in the far west, out in the Panhandle. We've got the Bills up in the north central. You go to the east, our Olsons are award winners this year, and then in south central Nebraska, the Shaw. So we have really covered the state from one end to the other in these 15 different operations. Another thing that really jumps out at me is represented here, we have cattle ranchers, families in pork production, row crop farmers, and about every form or type of agricultural endeavor is represented. But I do think there's a couple of things that really tie them together, and they were mentioned in the video that you just saw. But one being that they all have an intense love of the land. And then secondly, they all want to leave that land in better health for the next generation. To the right on your screen now, you can see our sponsors. I'm not going to read through those, but I mean, I want to thank all of them very much because it's because of their help that we're able to present the award here in Nebraska as well as nationwide. In the contiguous United States, about 75% of the land is privately owned. Here in Nebraska, we're less than that, we're about, or more than that, we're about 97%. But the majority of private land is in ranches and farms or used in forestry. If protecting and preserving the land and everything that resides there is going to be a goal, it has to begin with private landowners. And we at Sand County are committed to listening to those private landowners, working with them to protect our natural resources, and then showcasing their land ethic. By land ethic, I mean managing the land in such a way that promotes a healthy, vibrant, growing community across that landscape. When landowners do this, they not only do what's good for them, but they do what's good for the general public. Providing clean water, providing food, providing areas for recreation, or just a few of the things that private landowners provide to all of us. Aldo Leopold, I'm sure as most of you know, was a forester, a teacher, a philosopher, a writer, a private land steward himself. He had many, many famous quotes. One in particular that I like to quote quite often, just because I like it so much, and it is this: when land does well by its owner, and the owner does well by his land, when both end up better by reason of their partnership, we have conservation. When one or the other is poorer, we do not. Just a great quote, and really sums up to me what conservation is all about. We've got a Pure Nebraska video that we're going to show that goes into a little bit more about the Leopold Award and also a little bit about, you know, what we do here in Nebraska. So we'll have that video now.
And welcome to Tags. Well, Mondays here on the program, we like to put the spotlight on the farm organization called the Alliance for the Future of Agriculture in Nebraska, or AFAN.
Each year, AFAN is involved with presenting the Leopold Conservation Award to a farmer in Nebraska who is committed to caring for the land. In this story, we learn how the award is marking 15 years in Nebraska.
The Leopold Conservation Award plays a big role in honoring farmers who care about their land. Joining me now with more on this is Craig Utter with the Leopold Conservation Award, Sand County Foundation. What is the Leopold Conservation Award? What does it honor?
The Leopold Conservation Award is based around Aldo Leopold and his ethic of finding ways to balance conservation and land use. And that's very apparent in the state of Nebraska. And we celebrate the farmers and ranchers who are out there every day on their privately owned pieces of property, who are not only participating in agriculture, but doing it in a way that benefits the natural environment around them. The current winners is the Olson family up in Craig, Nebraska, row crop farmers who have been working on finding ways to improve their water quality through buffer strips. They've planted multiple pollinator plots, and they're our 15th recipient here in Nebraska, which is fantastic. We've been doing this award for 15 years. Our first award recipient was in 2006. We have multiple partners. In the 15 years, we started with the Nebraska Cattlemen, and now we've morphed into working with AFAN. And we've had sponsors from other environmental groups, the Nebraska Land Trust, the Sand Hills Task Force, the Rainwater Basin Joint Venture, and we've got public entities that have been involved with it, the Nebraska Game and Parks Division, NRCS. And then there's corporate sponsors who believe that this is really important. Cargill has been a big sponsor. On a national level, it's the American Farmland Trust.
Craig, I know the governor is involved.
Yeah, that's right, John. Every spring we get together in Lincoln to hold our annual Earth Day event. And that event starts out with a roundtable discussion to talk about conservation and agriculture issues. We have an opportunity for folks to meet the newest recipient. And then we go over to the state capitol where the governor announces from this press room the latest recipient. And it's a fantastic opportunity to bring in all these different entities in celebrating the fantastic work that farmers and ranchers do here in Nebraska.
It's great to know that the Leopold Conservation Award is marking a big milestone, 15 years here in Nebraska. Craig, thanks for being with us today.
And welcome back. Well, Mondays during the program.
It's a pleasure for me now to go ahead and introduce the Olsons to you. But before we do that, we're going to have a video that is produced by the Sand County Foundation. We do it for all our winners in all the states that we present the award. But it's a video that goes into a little bit of what some of their conservation practices are, a little bit about what they think about conservation. So we'll have a video now.
Grandpa farmed down on the bench in between Herman and Blair. This farm came up. First they rented 80 acres and then they bought the 160 where we're at today. My mom and dad lived up on the hill in Burke County, which is right across the road. But since I was 3 years old, I've lived there my whole life. Family farm, we were a dairy farm till 2000. And at 2000, dairy prices were a little bit tough, so we decided to go a different route. We still farm. We also run an auction and real estate business, but the farm is where our heart has always been, that's for sure.
We raised two girls, Penny, our oldest, and Kaylee. And Penny and her husband, Mike, live down by Plymouth, Nebraska, and have 3 children, Henry, Edie, and Mary. And Kaylee lives in Omaha and works on a produce farm in Carson, Iowa.
I guess as you look around the farm, we do a lot of different practices. We do filter strips, we put in a lot of terraces, the corners for safety, pollinators. We just do a lot of different things to try to conserve our water and our soils, because when you're a farmer, I think that's very important. But we've no-tilled for over 25 years, I think now, just trying to keep the soils in place. We've been doing a lot with cover crops, which is new to us. I mean, the first time we did it, you know, we weren't really sure if it was going to work, but believe me, it works. We had torrential downpours last spring in the state of Nebraska, and where we had cover crops, the soil held. When it comes to filter strips along the creek, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. We plant 100 feet alongside the creeks, and maybe for you that doesn't work, but you need to leave somehow to slow down the sediment of soil getting into the creeks, your chemical that runs off getting into creeks, and just preserving our water resource that we have in the state of Nebraska. Lita and I both enjoy just watching wildlife. We planted shelter belts back when Penny was in high school. We've got cover for nesting. We have cover for winter. It's 2 different covers, 2 different grasses, but if you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, you're going to have some birds, you're going to have some quail, you're going to have some deer. It all kind of goes hand in hand, and then all of a sudden you have songbirds start to show up. As far as the pollinator projects that we have on the farm, and we have several. We have the corners for wildlife, that's a pollinator project, and also for the safety of the corners. We have several other different pollinator plots. We have a pollinator plot that we just put in last fall up on an abandoned place just to the east of us here. Lita also has honeybees up on the place now, and the butterflies that we see are just unbelievable at times, the amount of butterflies. And that all goes into, as far as pollination of corn, soybeans, or whatever crop you're raising. You need those pollinators to have a successful pollination. Yeah, I got started with Pheasants Forever. Yeah, that's been a long time ago in Burke County. I'm down in Washington County now, but they're kind of the voice for wildlife and for the sportsmen in our country. I don't know how many kids we've taken through youth mentored horses throughout the years.
My dad's always been big into hunting and wanting to carry that forward for future generations to hunt. Hunting and fishing is his passion in life. Maybe that started when Kaylee and I were in 4-H age, and we got into this wildlife habitat management program, and they were actually our 4-H leaders. It just kind of has evolved from there.
Ed's always he does everything with a passion. He doesn't really do anything halfway. He's always really good about taking time. And, you know, if somebody wants to go down to the pond and go fishing, he'll drop what he's doing to take those kids down there to go fishing. And it's just always been fun to watch him.
I'm really proud of my parents. I know a lot of farmers do what they can to take care of, you know, the world around us, but it's really neat to be able to tell others that my parents have pretty much done everything that they can to make sure that they're giving back to the water, the soil, all of the resources here as much as they're taking away to survive.
As far as the Leopold Award, when we got the call that we were one of the finalists, I didn't know what to say. I mean, they were talking to Kaylee and I was over there speechless. So to think that what we've done here, and I guess we just did it because we thought it was right, I don't know. But it is an honor, and we are very humbled, both Lita and I, that we were nominated for this award. The whole conservation effort through your NRD, your NRCS, your FSA offices, I mean, we're just a small part of the puzzle. If you don't have those people to help you out, where are you going to go with this thing? But if you implement the practices they give you, hopefully you can turn the farm, whether it's to our kids or the next generation or whoever ends up on this farm, they're going to have a good farm to farm.
You know, we only own it for a little while, and I think we need to keep that in the back of our minds for the younger generation.
That's really why we've done everything we've done on this farm. It's just to pass it on to somebody, whether it's our kids or somebody else's down the line.
It's a pleasure for me to welcome Ed and Lita to our Leopold family. Whenever I watch their video, it makes me think of Aldo Leopold himself, and he had such a love for hunting and fishing and the wildlife and life and everything. And certainly Ed and Lita have those same traits and that same love. So it's really, like I say, a pleasure for me to welcome you to the Leopold family and any comments you would like. But congratulations again, Ed and Lita.
And I'd like to echo that, Homer, that it's been a pleasure getting to know the Olson family through this award. I think that they really embody what it's all about to be a farmer here in Nebraska. And so, Ed and Lita, congratulations and welcome to the Leopold Award family.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just it's been quite a ride down this road, I'll tell you that much. Excuse me, I'm a little bit just getting over the COVID thing here, so we did have that bump in the road this week. But I've been following AFAN and the mission that they're trying to put out there to the public, and the transparency as far as trying to get out and tell people what they're doing with the livestock industry. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the San County Foundation also. We need to show the public, since we have lost that connection between the rural community and the consumer in town. They need to know what we're doing out here to conserve our resources. If you saw in the tape there, I mean, we do everything we can to keep the water quality as it comes into our ground. When it leaves, we want it to be the same as what it came in. So with the filter strips, the field borders, the terraces that we've done, no-till cropping now for over 25 years, it's amazing how even this year in a drought, the crops that we can pull off this land by not disturbing the soil and keeping everything intact. Just unbelievable. Anytime that we can promote agriculture in a positive way, I think we need to do that. Right now, a big issue is, global warming and the greenhouse gases and all that. With cover crops, I think we have a unique opportunity in the ag industry to plant cover crops on our farms, to get that carbon taken out of the air, put it down into the soil where it's actually got to do us some good. And then that plant expels oxygen. And I mean, I think that's just saying that, yeah, we're livestock producers, we're farmers, but we're doing everything we can to help the environment and to make this a better place than what it was before we started. So I think there's just a lot of different opportunities for us to promote ourselves as the ag industry any way you can. And I think cover crops is definitely a way to do it. When we went back and received the award through Pheasants Forever, it was pollinators was a hot button issue back at that time, and you would go in and you would talk to representatives and they would sometimes be their aides, and they would just kind of look at you. But once you brought up pollinators, the notebooks came open and they started to take note of what you were talking about, that it's important to have those pollinators and have any place on your farm. Everybody has that one place on their farm where it's probably not as productive as what it should be. It's hard to farm. Well, put that into a pollinator plot. Do something with it, so at least you're helping the process. I mean, you're helping these pollinators. I still think, and I can't prove it, but where we have field borders around our fields, we don't seem to have the insect pressure in our fields from the bad insects. I think if you give the good insects a place to live, they'll help control the bad insects. I mean, anytime you have a sterile environment of corn or beans across the whole section with nothing else out there, it's not a good deal. It's just, it doesn't work. You need that diversity in the landscape. And getting people out, getting them hunting and enjoying what we have, here. I don't know. I had a guy tell me the other day, he said, never buy a house on the lake because you'll get bored with it. When it comes to our pond, we've got kids down there fishing all the time. And that's good because we're getting them outdoors and they're enjoying something that we've always enjoyed as a family too. So I'm probably just rambling here. As you can tell, I'm not used to being a public speaker, but we are so proud to have the award and everything else. And I had a whole list here of things I wanted to talk about, but you know how that goes when you get in front of a stage, which you're not really used to being and talking in front of people. But you know, the filter strips, like I say, we want that when that water comes into our farm, we want it to leave the same way. And that's why we've done a lot of the stuff we've done here. So I don't know. With that being said, I know Kaylee had a few comments she wanted to make, and just thank you for the opportunity. And I am a fan now of this AFAN that you have here, because man, I tell you, your videos and stuff were just so transparent and promoting your livestock industry. I was really impressed with what we saw and what we learned through your website. So thank you so much for letting us be a little part of it. I'll turn it over to Kaylee.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm a writer and storyteller at heart. I studied journalism in college, and one thing that I've noticed over the decade or so since then is that these rural stories are really hard to come by, especially if you're not seeking them out in an active way or even know what you're looking for. So I just wanted to call out that I think such a significant thing about this award is not only, of course, you know, there's the award itself, there's the recognition, but it's the opportunity to have someone come out and make that piece that we just shared with everyone is just so important, because most farmers and rural people don't necessarily have the time, the resources, the money to share their stories in such an eloquent way. So I just wanted to say that I think that's such a great part of this. It showcases our family so beautifully, as well as all of the winners in the past 15 years, as well as across the United States. It's been really fun to see all of the different stories this year. So I just wanted to thank AFAN for contributing to that. It's just a really neat thing to have, and we really appreciate it.
And I guess the only other thing I would like to add, I don't know if I'm on or not, is we've donated some of the proceeds from the award. We split with Pheasants Forever down in Washington County to buy a dry fire system, which actually helps kids learn how to shoot before they actually have a gun in their hand. We used it at our first youth mentor hunt, and it was just, the kids just loved it. I mean, so that, and then we're going to use it at our hunter safety programs too. I mean, Lita and I decided to pay all this money forward. So thank you for this.
Very much so.
Well, congratulations again, and Lita and Kaylee as well. You say that you're not a real good speaker, but Ed, you do an excellent job. You can tell it comes from your heart, the way you feel, and that's what matters. And we really do need to tell our story, and you and your family will do and are doing an excellent job of that.
Thank you. Penny's here too. Penny hopped on and got here on with us too, our other daughter. So, but thank you so much for your time today and letting us just tell our story a little bit.
Be part of it.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Penny, did you have something you wanted to add?
I don't think you have your mic waiting.
All right, Steve. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add from the AFAN side of it. From Sand County, we are just proud as always of our recipients, and congratulations again to the Olsons.
Yeah, we're from AFAN, you know, thank you for what you do, the example you set. As a fellow hunter and fisherman, I'm completely impressed with the amount of time you take to work with youth. And that does take a lot of time. It takes, you know, something that you have to give up to go do something for somebody else. And I'm very impressed with that and your entire family, because I know, you know, behind you doing that is the rest of them supporting you. So thank you again for your example. And we do have your award here in Lincoln. So we'll figure out how to get it to you and the sign that goes with it. But we'll chat later and we'll figure out how to get that to you. But thank you again. Congratulations on a very deserved award.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So I think one thing that's real important, Steve, is to talk about next year.
That's right, Craig. So what we have here on the screen now, and there's a website there, is the nomination process for 2021. Craig, do you want to tell a little bit about what people need to do?
Well, for the next award cycle that comes up in 2021, we'll be accepting applications from the first of the year right on through March 1st. As you can see from our past recipients, there's a lot of good that's going on out in Nebraska, and we want to capture as much of that as possible. So if you know of somebody who you think might be a qualified applicant, or if you would just like to apply yourself, we do have the official forms are out and ready to go, and you can find it in a lot of ways. You can go to sandcountyfoundation.org /apply LCA and look for the Nebraska application, or you can find it through the AFAN website. On this call for nominations, it gives you an explanation of what we would like to see in the application packet. And if you have questions, you can contact AFAN or Sand County Foundation, and we'll help answer any of those questions.
Wonderful. Yes, we look for some quality applications coming in again. I know in the last couple of years under AFAN's involvement, the applications are impressive. So please apply.
Yep, and this goes for anybody in agriculture. We like to see farmers, ranchers, dairymen, hog producers, anybody in the poultry industry. Feel free to look into those folks who are around you and find out who is well suited for this award and help them apply, and we'll help answer all your questions. I know that Sand County Foundation looks forward to another year with AFAN as we walk into both of our 16th years in existence, and we'll just do what we can to keep this going.
That's right. Thank you, Craig. Homer, thank you for being here today. Again, congratulations to the Olsons. Did you have anything else, Craig?
Nope. Thanks again, Steve. We really appreciate it.
All right, then we are going to take a real short break. We'll come back at 10:20 with our young producer panel. We've got 4 young livestock producers. They're going to talk about their experiences in getting started and what they're working on. It's going to be a great conversation, and excited to hear that. So 10:20, we'll be back on. In the meantime, we'll take a short break. Thank you. Okay, 1 minute, right? Are we on?
No. Chris, you're not unmuted. Not unmuted.
Oh, I must have been muted. My apologies. Welcome back, everybody. Chris Bosquet again, Director of Livestock Development. Pleasure to introduce the young producer panel that's about to join us here in a second. AFAN likes to highlight young producer panels like this to give the audience a firsthand experience and a story, specifically from somebody who has done it and the learnings that they've made. You know, this panel is made up of entrepreneurs who have either built their operation or have transitioned into it. And our panelists include Lucas Fricke, who is a pork producer, Zemwa Baptista, who's a poultry grower for LPP, Hannah Esch, who is a beef raiser, and Brooke Engelman, who is a dairy farmer. And so I will now, I'd like to open it up to our panelists to tell us about themselves and their operation and how exactly they got into it. So Lucas, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself and your operation, please? Hey, Lucas. Not sure if we can hear you, Lucas.
Can you hear me now?
Can. Yes, we can. Thanks.
Oh, that's better. My name is Lucas. I'm from Ulysses, Nebraska. I come from a family operation that does row crop and farrow to finish. But I also own a business that does transparency and traceability called Shore Check. I went to UNL. I was an angler entrepreneur, and I got degrees in animal science and applied science as well.
Thanks for introducing yourself there, Lucas. How about Brooke Engelman? Brooke, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
There I am. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, I'm Brooke Engelman, and I'm a dairy farmer from Jansen, Nebraska. And our operation is Classic Dairy, and it is a family farm. My husband is a fourth-generation dairy farmer. We milk right around 1,050 cows, and we also raise corn, soybeans, alfalfa. It is a family farm. There's 6 of us that work full-time on the farm from the family, plus we also have other employees. My education, I actually have an ag business degree from SCC in Beatrice. So when I started at the farm, I was pretty much doing books, and now I have definitely transitioned into more of a hands-on role at the barn, hence the hat. As soon as this meeting went virtual, I had to work this morning, so.
Lucky you.
Yeah, right?
Hey, thanks for your introduction, Brooke. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, let's transfer over to the poultry industry. And Zemwa, would you be able to introduce yourself, please?
Well, hi there, guys. Name is Zemwa Baptista from Southeast Nebraska, a little town, name a friend. Got a little bit of farm ground, and then I guess where our poultry operation is that I had just started about a year ago is just down the road from Lucas Fricke over there here in Ulysses. I attended University of Nebraska. We'll graduate in December actually, with a degree in agriculture, economics, and I would be considered a first generation farmer here in the United States. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. It's a great story, Zemwa. Hannah, would you be able to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good morning. Thanks for having me on. My name is Hannah Esch, and I grew up in Unadilla, Nebraska. My family has a cow-calf herd here where we mostly did recips herd, put embryos in for other producers, raised them till weaning, and then they went back to those producers. And eventually the ones who didn't get bred, we bred with our own genetics and started selling the beef from that, which led me to start Oak Barn Beef, which is a direct-to-consumer beef company in which I ship my family farm beef and one other family farm in Nebraska's beef directly to consumers across the U.S. So it's been a fun journey. I started that when I was a sophomore in college, and I recently graduated in May from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where I studied animal science and then had minors in Angler Entrepreneurship Program, Nebraska Beef Industry Scholars in Ag Business. And now I live in West Point, Nebraska, and I'm transitioning the herd and our cattle up there in the beef company.
Awesome. I'm starting to see a little bit of a trend with this Angler program. So thank you, Hannah, for introducing yourself. So again, thanks to our panelists for introducing themselves. It's good to hear about your stories and get to know you a little bit better. And so now we'll move into our question and answer portion of the session. And for anybody that wants to ask a question, please feel free to ask those in the chat box. Type those in there, and I'll try to intervene those as we go, or potentially bring those up at the end. So feel free to share those, and we'll ask the group. So I'm going to start out with our first question here, and we'll ask Lucas, I guess, to answer first, and then maybe ask Brooke to follow up. But why did you decide to go into livestock production specifically? Lucas, if you can share that. I think you're muted, Lucas.
How about now? That better?
Yep.
A lot of it comes down to tradition, but also it comes to opportunity. One of the biggest things that I think I talk a lot about with people is that we're involved in a lot of people's first, whether that be the Christmas or dates and stuff like that. So you have to have a better appreciation for the product that you raise and are involved in. So besides just the family tradition of it, you got to like it yourself. And so that's where I like interacting inside the barn every day. I like the animal legitimately. I know some people may laugh being the beef state that I like pigs, but definitely enjoy it. And it comes down to working with your family and also the opportunities that are coming to help shape that industry and make it better.
Yeah, awesome. I completely agree with you. The opportunity is one thing that I guess I took away from that. And as we all know, livestock is definitely a great opportunity for anybody, and happy that you're incorporating that into your system here, Lucas. So Brooke, would you be willing to entertain us on why you decided to get into it?
Well, I got married. That was step one, but no, I guess I'm going to go back, and as far as just the farm in general, in 1996, it was really wet and they were having trouble getting crops in the ground. And that's when our farm decided to expand and raise more cows, because we decided that even if we were having trouble farming, there were, we could always milk cows. So that kind of pushed the livestock side for us a little bit more. And now, yeah, we do it because we enjoy it. I agree with Lucas. I mean, I like the animals. As frustrated as they make me some days, when it comes down to it, I love my cows. So that's why we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll transition to our second question now. This one will be for Zemwa. How did you learn that livestock production was an opportunity for you?
Yeah, so, we don't own, a whole bunch of farm ground, and, I knew agriculture after college was something that, I wanted to come back and do. And my dad kind of brought up the opportunity of finding, a finishing operation where you can get a contract through another company that kind of secures, a little bit of income, and what you're going to make. And, it's a little easier to get financed than trying to go out and buy a whole bunch of farm ground. So it really goes back just to like what everybody else was saying, a lot of that opportunity, and, it gives you a start to allow yourself to work for yourself and to grow, an operation that can turn into something that can go on, generation after generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm hearing from a lot of people as far as livestock opportunities, is, you can make things work with a small amount of land and make a bigger impact for long term. So Lucas, could you share with us, how, I understand that it was kind of a, you know, a traditional thing in your family and kind of ingrained in your heritage, but, you know, how did you, you know, I guess get the confidence and know that personally yourself could take off and run with a livestock enterprise opportunity?
I guess that it comes down to birth by fire and being able to react in stressful scenarios. You know, my situation was a little bit different. I kind of had to step into that role a little bit quicker. My dad kind of had some health issues that ended up kind of, like I said, birth by fire or baptism by fire situation. In dealing with those scenarios and understanding it, you're like, do you really want to do this every single day with everything going wrong in that scenario? So I guess especially that's how I knew I wanted to do it. But it also came to the aspect of being involved with that animal again and that opportunity in being in the rural environment and having that community around you. So I guess like it at some points, you know, you got to love what you do and you really got to understand that the thing that you're doing at your farm is going to be more down the road. It's kind of a touchy-feely, you know, emotional type situation, why we do what we do. But I have to say, like, it's because of that end product. It's because I get to be with my family every day. It brings me personal happiness. I just get to live that life through livestock. And I feel that it teaches me great skills of, you know, taking care of things and problem solving. I mean, like, figuring out loads and problems and, you know, using my education, it makes me feel worthwhile. So it takes all the combination of everything that I enjoy doing and bringing it into one package. And that's raising pigs on our family farm. So they like, without that, you know, I wouldn't have my identity. You know, a lot of my life is built around raising these animals. And so it's just got to be something that you got to be comfortable with. You got to use the skills that you're given and be able to, you know, best put them forward and be able to make a difference. And so that's where I really feel that this opportunity production comes down to is, you know.
Well, thanks, Lucas. I think it might have had a little bit of a lag there towards the end, but I guess the main takeaway that I received from your conversation was mainly around, you know, family, how it's ingrained in your, I guess your being, your soul, really, and how much enjoyment you get out of raising livestock. So we'll transition to our next question here. We'll have Brooke answer this one and then maybe follow up with Hannah if she's willing. So what has been the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome to get where you are today?
I would say, as far as, yeah, the farm in general, the biggest obstacle, I mean, is probably the neighbors. And I mean, just, yeah, 1,000 cows produce a lot of manure, and that's, you know, that's always an issue for us and how we handle it. And we've been, I guess, very lucky that we have a lot of support in our area, so that definitely helps. One other obstacle that, you know, we faced here in the last couple of years with our transition of family, you know, coming back to the farm and things like that is just a lot of different opinions from, you know, multiple generations. And just everybody kind of relearning how to work together and I guess, yeah, value everyone's opinions and things like that, and learning how to all work together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know firsthand how stressful that can be at times, for sure. And as far as your neighbors go, I'm sure that's a challenge over the years as they change, you know. I mean,
definitely,
really having
right.
to try to, you know, explain to them who you are and what you do, I'm sure that's difficult as well.
Right, it is. And like I said, for the most part, we've been, you know, very fortunate with a lot of good neighbors, but yeah, it's just always the manure management is always an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Hannah, what do you think your biggest obstacle was?
I like Lucas's phrase of baptism by fire. So when I first decided to start this business, I had a lot of knowledge like in the cow-calf sector, not as much with working with a USDA butcher. So I had to learn a lot about the meat side and the processing side. And then beyond that too, since I am marketing directly to consumers, that whole other side of the business from, well, that's shipping. So how to ship meat and make sure it gets there correctly, and marketing and all of those things. So it really has been just learning as you go. And even through COVID, our demand had increased so much. So trying to figure out how to balance that and upscale, and it's just been a lot to just learn as you go, which I think you face with any business. And then off of Brooke's point too, with family, it has been an obstacle. I'm just moved to my fiance's hometown, and we're really working with his family now. So it's interesting to go from working with my family farm and transitioning that to my in-laws, and they've been great, but it's just a new territory, and you really have to learn as you go with that.
Yeah, trying to, I guess, find out where the waters lie there. Matter of fact, we actually, thanks for touching on COVID. We had a question in the chat box for you specifically on just how, I guess, how COVID, changed your direct to consumer business. Could you elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, it's been a huge uptick since March. So we started the year, I have a subscription box where people can sign up and get boxes every month, every 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months. And we started 2020 with 7 subscribers, and that was up to 90 subscribers at one point. So trying to figure out how to make that process a lot better has been interesting, but overall, and it has slowed down since March. However, I think there was a lot of opportunities where we got contact information of our customers when we were sold out of beef or were able to supply them at a different time. And now I can see some of those customers who had interest then coming back and placing their orders now. So really hoping for a good Christmas season as this comes forward. And I think with COVID increasing too, we're going to see another spike there.
Yeah. So I think we'll try to move into our next question, and I'd like to aim this one at Zemwa. So in your thought process, I guess, of you starting this business up from scratch, what resources did you use throughout the whole concept phase to the implementation phase? Did you lean on bankers, the UNL, family, friends, or us at AFAN, or just how did you work through that process?
Yeah, I would say that, the two biggest assets that I utilized would have been probably FSA and a banking institution. FSA, a lot of people don't know that they have their program for beginning farmers, and they allow you, X amount of dollars. I think right now it might be at 600,000, which you can borrow, at a much lower interest rate than you can with a bank. And whatever else you need to to finish, you can get from a bank, and it works almost as a down payment, which can really go a long way. Along with that, I was fortunate that my parents are in a position or that can help me out, and they can back me, because being this young, I don't have a lot of credit history, a lot of those things that banks and other people look at. So having the backing of them really allowed me to do everything that we've got today.
Yeah, I'm sure that's extremely important. Hannah, what about you? What kind of things did you utilize during your concept to implementation phase? What things were important to you?
The Angler Entrepreneurship Program was probably the biggest difference maker. And that wasn't, they didn't necessarily like hand you resources or a lot of that, but it was more so like the mentorship and pushing you to go out of your comfort zone to start building this now, versus if I wasn't in that program, I would have started it 5 years down the road or something like that. So just by having people push you to do that. When I was a sophomore and thinking about starting this business, I got an internship with one of the largest direct-to-consumer companies in the US and moved to Northern California for the summer and lived on their ranch. And so I got hands-on experience from like the farm aspect, from the shipping aspect, marketing, everything that covered my business, and that gave me a huge step up. As far as like logistics go with the production side, I've been really working closely with my parents and now my in-laws, but we will be like going through the purchasing land and some of those in the next few years. And so it's going to bring some more challenges, but the FSA loans and learning about a lot of the other resources for beginning farmers is really helpful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll kind of open this up to the group. This next question is, you know, I guess from like a big picture standpoint, you know, we spoke a little bit about image and being friendly to your neighbors and things like that, because they always change. And so, you know, what, I guess, in regards to your operation, the positive impact to your community, how does that, how important is that to you guys? And I guess, where do you feel like you need to get in the next 5 to 10 years in regards to that? Zemwa, you want to start out and then we'll rotate around?
Yeah, I would say, you know, it's kind of big. I'll shift gears and kind of go to say that, you know, we're growing up kind of in a time period where, you know, there's a lot of people who think, you know, we mistreat animals or we do things that aren't right or in ways that we're not supposed to. So I think, you know, showing everybody what we do as much as we can, and, you know, and our love and our passion for animals and what we do is a big thing, and I think can go a long way. And, you know, in getting the support and backing of consumers and other people who take the products that we produce. And I believe if we can continue to do that, you know, neighbors, you know, will follow, and along with other people that we need the support of, you know, in order to be successful and to have a place for what we raise to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. Lucas, what about you? What do you think, you know, how does your image, how is your image important to you? And I guess, where do you think you need to develop that, or are you there?
I think products change and consumers' preferences change. So as farmers, you know, we're just like a regular merchant. We change our product in accordance to, you know, what the marketplace desires, whether that be different types of genetics or different feeds types or different housing types. But I think it's also a part of our job to make sure we are definitely teaching people why we do certain things the way that we do them. And that helps definitely take some of the mystery out of what we do and being transparent with our process. I think some of the easiest parts is just answering people's questions. You know, one thing that really benefited us is we had an open house when we put up a new barn, and we didn't think that a lot of neighbors do it. We just put them out there and we're like, yeah, if you want to come, you can come. But we had a lot of great questions from neighbors who lived a half mile down the road and never knew what went on inside there. So like, even out in the country, people still wonder. And, you know, they made comments like, you know, you guys moved in here and took these barns over and then built the new one, and I think we smell the barns less. Well, I don't think that's the truth. I think that's mainly because they understand who we are and what we're doing. And we just, you know, we're a little bit easier to, you know, probably approach and describe what's going on. So it comes down to that we're selling a product much like everybody else. Even though we're traded on the commodity board, we really are a niche product, and we can sell ourselves in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Brooke, I'm going to shift this one to you and see what you want to say about it. But what about like your economic impact image, and back to the community? You know, the property taxes that you bring back, you know, the employees that you employ. You know, what other factors does your operation, and I guess livestock in general, bring back?
Yeah, so we have, you know, right around 20 employees, and we provide housing for a lot of them. So we are, you know, bringing people into the community. They become involved, and their kids go to the school, you know, couple different schools actually. And I guess, yeah, I mean, we, you know, shop local and, you know, things like that too. So I guess I feel like we have a very positive impact on our local economy.
Mm-hmm. Hannah, do you think that plays a role also in success of your business?
Yeah, and I really try to shop local too. So any embroidery things we do, and all of that's done in West Point. We purchase our dry ice from West Point. Everything we can do locally, I try to do just for that economic impact. For more of like a consumer perspective, social media has been a powerful tool for us to use and show that just ag image and explain what we're doing, like just like Lucas said, invite them in to learn about it. And I really try to advocate for agriculture as a whole, not only our operation, but I think the more people who get out there and you get a friendly face to the farmer, it does a lot of good. So
Absolutely. So Hannah, we're going to stay with you on this next question. What is your biggest need to stay in business going forward, and how are you going to meet that need?
I'd say our biggest need right now is processors and butchers. So we have to be USDA inspected in order to sell our meat across state lines and directly to consumers. So the availability of butchers and being able to get in those spots in the butcher is really important to our business. Luckily, we've worked with a few different ones recently and have been able to get those spots. But as farther outlook than that, I think just finding a good partnership along those lines and continuing that. But.
Yeah, definitely important. We all know that the processing in general during COVID has been crazy. So I can understand your challenges there for sure. Zemwa, what about you? What are some of the things, I guess, that you think you're going to need as far as your business moving forward?
It's a good question. Moving forward, I would say that, we're going to need, everybody to work together. We employ a couple different people, and sometimes I don't know if they realize, but they're a pretty big part of our operation, because we've got, roughly about 350,000 birds that we have at one time, and it really takes, a couple different people to keep that running. And, if we can keep everybody in check, as far as management goes and all those kinds of things, it'll only help us excel, and raise a product that's healthy, happy, and all those things that go hand in hand. I think that's what we'll really need to stay in tune with, to have success in the following years and as we go on.
Lucas, care to share what your one thing that you need to stay in business going forward is?
This is a specific, we need better internet where we're at. A lot of the infrastructure that our barns and modern barns are needing is good bandwidth. I know that sounds really stupid, but it is a legitimate thing that our industry is starting to need. We're getting more and more technology that is connected. So, it's probably one of the biggest things that I see tangible that Nebraska needs to invest into. Because when we have that kind of connectivity and those things, we're able to automate a couple more processes and situations like that. So it really helps us attract the next generation of people that want to be in this industry. It makes the job easier, more efficient, and above all, we can, kind of connect things better together to maintain happy and healthy animals. So if I could say one thing we need, it's definitely better internet in our areas.
Brooke, what about you?
I mean, really just, a demand for our product is, we can't stop milking the cows because nobody, is buying the milk or whatever. We milk every day. So it's, just really the demand for the product is, what it is, and a good price. So.
Yeah, I hear you. So the next question, I guess, will be, how important is it, I guess, to have that when looking at your image of your operation, the one thing that comes to mind is, I guess, the big thing for future success is obviously a relationship with the lender, and being able to keep utilizing that operating note. I guess, can anybody share on the importance of that? Just the relationship with your lenders and how that's important, or how do you really even get a start in establishing that relationship if you've come from really built your business on your own? Lucas, I guess, go ahead.
So I kind of had a mixed relationship when it came to our lender. My parents started us at probably a middle of high school, probably introducing that. And maybe that was because of, other things going on in that transition of our family farm. But understanding the importance of that relationship, that's probably the biggest thing. So if you're thinking about transitioning your farm, start taking your kids to those meetings. Start teaching them FSA and other stuff like that. It doesn't have to just be people returning back home, but people there now, because the moment you're not there, there's a major role switch within, the hierarchy of your farm. So when it came to that lender relationship, I'm really glad that my parents started us out early, because now I kind of took over that relationship primarily to myself. And it's really nice that I can call Kelly Johansson with Farm Credit, if he's on here, shout out to Kelly, and be able to have that conversation with him rather easily. And that's because that was started a long time ago. So when it comes to lending relationships, the sooner you start, the better. And usually for those parents that want their kids to come back home and, to expand the farm, use that leverage that you have with them now, talking about that, introduce the next generation, build up that confidence. And, that also gives your kid confidence and knowing what they're doing, understanding the terms and what they're looking for. And I would say, like, when it came to some rather dicey situations due to COVID at the start of this year, I was really glad that I could fall back on that relationship, be able to spitball ideas off of, come up with some creative solutions, and be able to kind of weather the storm. It kind of comes back down to starting that relationship rather early with our lender.
So what age do you think would be appropriate for that, Lucas?
I would say like senior in high school, starting into college. The start of that relationship, they have a strong financial understanding, what interest is, those kind of situations. And, more than not, just sitting and being a part of it and listening rather helped me quite a bit, and understanding what questions are going to be asked, what things are going to be looking to. Tax accountants, if you can start kids understanding taxes sooner than ever, that's also super important, because it only gets more complicated. That is one thing that I'm pretty happy that my parents started me out early with, is understanding what taxes are, how they work, different types of write-offs. When you become a farmer, you're gonna love write-offs and understanding that situation. So as soon as once you understand what taxes are and understanding that whole entire realm, I would say like senior in high school on. So
awesome, thanks. Zemwa, would you be able to share with us, knowing, I guess, from your standpoint, being a first generation farmer, how was that relationship setting, I guess, with your lender kind of difficult, or was your family's relationship beneficial from the start?
Yeah, I would say that, it was a little bit of both, having, a family that already had, a previous financial relationship with their lenders makes a difference. But I would also say that really you as a producer, whoever's going to be the one, using that money, having a good relationship with the lender is really important, because it's one thing, for somebody to have that relationship, but if the lender knows that they're not the one that's doing what's at stake there, they're still they may not be comfortable, just due to the fact that they don't have that relationship, like some other people may have. And I do believe that it goes a long way, because, here in the first year operation, there's not, there wasn't a whole lot of working capital to begin with. So you rely, really heavily on your lenders. And sometimes you may just not have, simply not have as much as they ask, but because they know your character, you have that relationship with them. Sometimes they, can either find a way to make it work, or at least point you in the right direction, so that you can get the funding or the resources that you need in order to, keep the operation going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. Hannah and Brooke, this one's, I'm going to change this question just a smidge and ask you, but do you guys see any issues with explaining your business model, or trying to convey what your operation is doing? I know, Brooke, you can probably say that, a lot of bankers or lenders out there have, just don't know dairy anymore. And so I'm sure that's an issue. And Hannah, I don't know if your direct to consumer style of business was difficult to get across, but Could either of you elaborate on that? Hannah, maybe go first.
Yeah, I had an extremely good experience with my lender, and I started working with Union Bank and Trust when I was in like a startup program, and they have a small business side, and the lady who runs that, Stephanie Dinger, has been a huge resource for me, and she's connected me with ag lenders, like real estate, everything within that company, and she's been great and follows my business on Instagram, Facebook, website, everything. So I've had extremely good experiences with that. When I have looked at switching banks just to be in my local community, they have been understanding too. I haven't made that switch quite yet just because it's a newer thing that I've moved back, but I haven't had any frustrations to speak on.
I'm sure it's probably one of those questions where, you know, you're not sure if making the switch is the right call because you work so hard to build the relationship in the first place. You know, do you take the risk and move and experience something different?
Right.
But Brooke, what about you? Do you have any issues down in Jansen?
Well, like you said, I mean, a lot of people don't understand the dairy industry. I mean, it's different, and our needs are different. And I guess we've been very fortunate. We work with Farm Credit, and our lender is, I mean, he's a farm guy too, so he kind of gets it. And we've been with him now for a long time. And where we're transitioning in the next generation, he knows all of us and understands, I guess our goals and our needs as well. So we've been very fortunate. He's been great to work with.
That's awesome. That's something that's sometimes rare, but it's
Right.
extremely beneficial when it works out like that.
Yeah.
So knowing that everybody works with family for the most part here, how do you guys navigate conflicts and different, I guess, differing opinions? And maybe we'll just start with Brooke, being that your microphone's off or is on, and and you mentioned a little bit about it earlier when you were talking. So how do you navigate some of that stuff?
I guess it's just keeping open communication is probably the most important thing, to know what each other are thinking, or yeah, kind of the goals. A lot of us have the same goals, so that helps too. But yeah, I think definitely just communicating if there is an issue, or before things become an issue, to talk about it is definitely important for us.
Mm-hmm. Communication is definitely key. Lucas, what about you? What do you think? How do you navigate family problems or issues there?
Communication is key. Especially one other thing that I found helpful, especially with dealing with personalities, is have someone be the leader, and have one person be that person, because sometimes when you got multiple different people going on, they kind of get confused about who's doing what. So for our aspect, it's kind of have one person and let them have the final say. So it's not like it's a release of any power. It just kind of helps mediate the entire situation when going through the chain of command. I work with my brother and my mom, and we have some hired help as well. So just kind of leave it with my brother. It helps with the whole entire situation. Don't take on too much that you can't do. And one of the biggest things, especially in our industry, ask for help when you need it. I know that sounds really cliche, but legitimately, the sooner you ask for help, it really helps with that communication, and kind of echoing what Brooke said, don't let things become a problem before they are a problem. So that's kind of comes to that, ask for help when needed and finding one person to be the leader.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know, I guess, coming from experience of growing up on a farm, sometimes a person that's the junior might have a difficult time doing that because they're not sure if they've earned the place to say. So I'm sure that's probably somebody's issue there as well. Zemwa, what about you? How do you manage family and issues there?
With our family, we're pretty open. So I think not taking everything, so personally all the time can make a big difference, because, whatever it may be that we're doing, sometimes things get said or somebody has their best interest, has your best interest in their head in the operation as well. And you just got to realize that sometimes, you may not be right, or, somebody said something because, it needed to be said. So not taking everything so personally and kind of having an open mind, and understanding, or at least trying to understand if you don't agree with what somebody's saying is to at least try and hear them out, because at the end of the day, you being wrong doesn't kill anything if it helps the operation. But if it's a pride thing, just because it's your pride, it could end up potentially hurting whatever you guys are doing. So I think communication, as far as understanding what somebody said, can go a long way, and that's what we try and utilize around here.
Communication. I keep hearing it. Hannah, what do you think? You're obviously in uncharted waters with a new family, I guess, coming in. So how's that different?
It's good. It's a little bit different because we're not working on the same business. So our businesses are working together. And so that's something I've been really trying to implement when we're switching, when I'm working with Eric's parents, is to try to do like layout costs in the beginning. So I borrow the truck and trailer to take cattle to the butcher from Eric's dad right now. And so by laying out those costs of what I pay per mile in the beginning ahead of time and kind of having that standardized, is something I'm hoping will help with that communication and make sure that it's fair between all fields too, and that the worst thing I want to do is take advantage of them and the resources and what they're giving to me. So by trying to avoid that, by laying everything out to make sure it's fair play beforehand.
Yeah, super important. Making sure all that stuff's taken care of. It's definitely a good way to mitigate some issues. So we touched briefly on employees. And so I guess I'll open this one up to anybody who wants to answer, but mainly maybe Zemwa and Brooke, being that you guys mentioned employees and things. But how do you handle potentially hiring an employee that could possibly be older than you? I mean, how do you navigate that relationship there? Zemwa, you want to start us off?
Yeah, no, we've got some guys around here that are, a little bit older, and we've had even some help that's, significantly older than I am. And it's tough sometimes, and you can understand if somebody, sometimes maybe doesn't respect or understand, why they're being told to do something by somebody that's so much younger than them, and I can understand where they come from. But I think at the end of the day, it's really, them understanding that, we're on the same team, and somebody like Lucas said has got to kind of have the final say and final decision, and giving them the freedom to do what is asked can go a long way, and giving them certain responsibilities of things they know that they're supposed to do can also help mitigate them being felt like they're told what to do because they have a specific job that they're there to do. And if they don't have to be told to do that and they know exactly what and when they're doing it, I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Brooke, what do you think? Has that been an issue in the past, or is it, how do you navigate those relationships?
Yeah, it hasn't really been, a bad issue for us. Everybody kind of has their role. So, I mean, you kind of, like Zemwa just said, you have what you're supposed to be doing, and we don't necessarily micromanage or anything like that. It's kind of in the long run, as long as everything's getting done, right and safe and the way it should be, it really hasn't been an issue.
Well, it's good to hear for sure. Lucas, do you have any of those problems?
I think it kind of just comes with the territory of having employees. Before Mike, who's our current guy, we probably went through 6 or 7 different people. And it came down to the fact that we offered ownership within the tasks that they're doing. Not ownership of our farm per se, but like making them responsible for their own thing. And if it fails, it was kind of their situation, or if it was a success, it was their success. And realizing that, I mean, we all have the same feeling if we work for somebody else, you know, if you do something right, you want to be noticed. So I think probably putting the effort into that and realizing it's not just an employee doing a job, it's a person, and they want to feel a part of the success as well. That's been the most successful thing for us when it came to working with people or having people work with us. And, you know, it's led to a really long-term employee for us who's, I don't know how we could survive without it. And I think everyone has that really good person. So, you know, they become a part of the family. And I think that's just the way it is in production agriculture, especially on farms, is that kind of relationship. So I guess when it comes to that, don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I've heard a few of you guys mention the Engler program and how, you know, you kind of worked through the Engler program and it gave you your business model or helped you build your business model. Could you guys, you know, maybe touch base on, I guess, if going through that program and knowing how rigorous it is and kind of mind-bending it is, what's some advice you could potentially give to somebody that's looking at livestock or incorporating livestock into their programs, and, you know, maybe how the Engler program can help them? I mean, is there any advice you can give? Maybe start with Hannah.
Yeah, I think the Engler program makes you think about, okay, so let me restart here. If you want to return back home to the family operation and there's not necessarily a spot there for you, they are great at helping you come up with ideas to make a spot for you back home or work with your family farm. And Dr. Field taught a class that was working with family business, and that was a huge help too, just to hear his experience. And he's the director of the program, but his experience with working with his family business and other ones that he's worked with and how to navigate those waters. But more so, I'd say what they do is it's a hands-on approach to entrepreneurship. So it's not just building the business plans, and it's actually getting out there and learning the field as you go. And that's what really benefited me the most.
Mm-hmm. Lucas, I guess you want to elaborate on that? Do you have any advice from I guess your point of from the Engler program, Rick, going up in it?
You know, probably the biggest thing is that no idea is a bad idea at first. You know, teaches you to think outside of the box. You know, Dr. Field was kind of famous in saying, be more than just number 2 yellow dent corn. I kind of remember him saying that. And so how do we add value to that product and how do we make ourselves different? I think that's probably how I apply a lot of that same type of thinking when it comes into our regular processes, how we're getting into different marketplaces, even though we're just raising pigs like everybody else. There's a lot of opportunities out there. It teaches you how to be resourceful. There's a lot of programs that people can be involved in when it comes to sustainability and different things like that help bring more premiums back to the farm. So I definitely say, like, Engler made me aware of that by thinking outside of the box and looking at commodity agriculture differently. And above all, it teaches you to fail fast, fail cheap, and fail forward. So, I mean, failure is a part of it, but it teaches you to be ready for it. And how are you going to continue to keep going? Because in livestock, especially in COVID, there has been a lot of failures this year and a lot of points where you're like, it literally would be easier just to go get a job in town. You know, that's what everyone says. But honestly, it almost ingrains you and toughens you to have the wherewithal and to be able to creatively problem solve. More of it's applying the logic in which you learn in the facts that we learn in school, and especially college format, and how we can apply that to our real life. It's an application program that people go through.
Wow, almost makes me want to go back to college. Sounds like an incredible program. Zemwa, I'm going to ask you a question real quick. What is the one piece of advice that you could give to somebody looking to get into livestock production?
I would say, you know, really love it, you know, because if you don't really love it, you're going to find yourself, you know, in a really, really miserable position, or in a place that you make decisions that don't benefit, you know, the animal itself or anybody else involved, just simply because, you know, you kind of didn't fully understand what you were getting yourself into. Animals got to eat every day, and they've got to be attended to and taken care of. And I think that's the advice I would give to somebody is to really know that, you're almost like raising a child. You've got to take, full responsibility, and you've got to know that you may not get to do some of the things that, other people that work a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 5 or whatever it is, and, have weekends off and get to do, some of the things that they do. You've got to realize, understand, and know that this is your job, and, it's a lifestyle. It's not just a job, and you really need to understand and take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think anytime working with livestock, things happen, and you might have to miss a birthday party or a football game or something like that. But if you love it, it's something you're gonna have to make a sacrifice for. So I completely see where you're coming from there. So Brooke, I guess in closing, we'll ask this one last question. If you could elaborate on one piece of advice that you could give a young producer, starting up a livestock business venture, what would that one piece of advice be?
That's a good question. I guess, you're gonna have to get your hands dirty, before everything works. Try different things, and you have to figure out what's gonna work for you as far as the size of operation, and all of that, how involved, you definitely want to be, because like everybody said, it isn't, it's a 24/7 job when you have livestock. So definitely a huge commitment, but it's doable, and it's a great way of life and a good way to raise a family.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a commitment, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks everybody for sharing your stories today. Greatly appreciate it. And I don't know about you in the audience, but I am extremely humbled and excited about the fact that you four are raising our food in Nebraska. So thank you for doing that. I greatly appreciate it. And thanks for just telling your story about where you come from, how you got going, and where that's going to end up. In conclusion, I guess, again, thanks again. Really appreciate that. If you have any other questions for the panel, please send them my way at chrisb@a-fan.org, and I'll send them over to those individuals and get you a response. But now it is my distinct honor to welcome somebody who has been a great ally to the ag industry in general in the state of Nebraska. The 40th governor of the great state of Nebraska, Governor Pete Ricketts. Hey, Governor, how you doing?
Great, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And thanks for all the people in the previous panel as well for doing such a great job. And Hannah, just so you know, did Hannah just sign off? Oh, too bad. Well, anyway, I keep getting her emails, so she's doing a good job of marketing. Hey, so we got a lot to talk about here. I thought I'd start off by talking about just some of the things we're doing with regard to the pandemic and what's going on here in the state with regard to that, and then roll in and start talking about some of the programs we've had for agriculture here. And then I think we can probably do some Q&A at the end if we've got time, if that works for you, Chris. So just to take a step back, obviously we've been managing this pandemic since really the end of February, early March here in the state of Nebraska. And our entire focus has been to preserve our hospital capacity. We want to make sure that everybody who needs that hospital bed, ICU bed, or that ventilator can get it when they need it. And so we've put together a 6-step plan to be able to do that. It involves doing our testing, and we've almost at one point had really doubled our testing through Test Nebraska, a private-public partnership that the state has set up to be able to offer free testing to anybody who wants it. It's the PCR testing. It's the most accurate type of testing, and we have been getting our test results back between 24 and 48 hours as of late. And we've done actually over almost 450,000 test results have been returned back, and we have over 530,000 Nebraskans have signed up and done an assessment on Test Nebraska. And of course, that's out there available for everybody at testnebraska.com. Everybody can get signed up, schedule a test, and get tested. So that's one of the ways that we've been able to find the people who are testing positive. The second step is to make sure that we ask those people to isolate and quarantine. If you're tested positive, you need to isolate, quarantine if you've been exposed. I just got done with a 14-day quarantine myself after having a friend over for dinner on Sunday night a couple of weeks ago, and then him testing positive the next day. So thankfully, I did not develop any symptoms, and have during that time I did test negative. So I'm grateful for that. But again, you can't test out of quarantining, and that's why we have contact tracers to call and follow up with people. We've been ramping up our staff. We had over 1,000 people trained. We're going to be adding on even to that number as well at the state. And we act as a supplement to the local public health departments, who are the first line of defense on doing that contact tracing. And that testing and contact tracing are really the blocking and tackling of how you address any sort of epidemic. The third thing is making sure we have appropriate PPE. That was something that was in short supply early on in the pandemic. We at the state have distributed over $36 million of PPE to first responders, healthcare workers, long-term care workers, dentist office, really to help make sure they have the right protective equipment. And we have really 90-day supply on hand in just about every category. The one thing that had been a limitation was the N95 mask. We were using the FDA and CDC approved KN95 masks, but now we are getting a good production from Honeywell with regard to those N95 masks, getting those out to our health professionals. Then the fourth place was making sure we had a place for people to go. That's why we started the Nebraska Accommodation Project, so that if people wanted to quarantine or isolate and not do it at their home for whatever reason, we'd have a place for them to do that. So we've done that. We have right now, I think between 20 and 30 people signed up for that program across the state. That includes school teachers, meat processing workers, and first responders. The fifth step was some of the plans we put in place around particularly at-risk populations like our long-term care facilities. We've been working with those to be able to minimize the spread in those facilities. We've been supplying testing so they can test staff regularly. We're asking them to test their staff twice a week to be able to keep the virus out of those facilities, because we know congregate living, especially with people who are older and have underlying healthcare conditions, are going to be more at risk. And then finally, we have our directed health measures to be able to make sure that we're slowing down the spread of the virus. We're currently in our orange status right now with regard to the number of patients we have in hospitals with coronavirus. That means we have between 20 and 25% of all the folks in our hospitals have coronavirus. If we hit the 25% level, we will be going into red, and we will be taking additional steps to restrict things such as indoor gatherings will go down to 10 people, outdoor gatherings will go to 25 people. We will limit bars to carry out delivery or drive-through only. Restaurants will be limited in providing dining in service only from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. and so forth. So those are some of the additional restrictions we will have if we hit that red zone. And that red zone, again, is based upon the number of hospitalizations we have if we reach 25% of overall hospitalizations of our hospital beds. Right now, we're at 976 hospitalizations, which is more than 4 times where we were on October 1st. So you can see we've had a big increase in cases and hospitalizations, which is why we're asking people to take these additional steps to slow down the spread of the virus. So that's the kind of the basic pandemic response plan that the state's put in place. The second thing we've done is the programs we've had from assistance from the federal government. The federal government has provided over $10 billion worth of relief to the state of Nebraska during this pandemic. It has involved things such as the Paycheck Protection Program, which was actually over $3 billion of that. Our community banks did a fantastic job of working for our small businesses and other organizations to be able to take advantage of that program. And so we're very pleased about the progress there. That's made a big difference in helping keep people in their jobs. In fact, Nebraska has the lowest unemployment rate in the country at 3%, and we've had it for the last 3 months. So that Paycheck Protection Program was a key part of being able to make that happen. We also have received about $1 billion from the federal government that we put in a variety of different programs, such as the programs we put in place for business and livestock producers. In fact, over 110 million of that will go to livestock producers. That program ended, or our second round of that program, its application was Friday, November 13th, and that program we expect will be fully subscribed in the second round as well. But it also included things such as $85 million for our nonprofit community, $130 million for local governments, $120 million for state government, So, and over $400 million for that small business stabilization and livestock producers. Also, as part of an overall program from the federal government to be able to help out our livestock producers and other folks in agriculture, we have the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. That was $718 million in the first program coming to Nebraska. Round two was $688 million. So the overall program was over $1.41 billion that came to the state of Nebraska through that Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Now, that second round, there is additional money available, and if you're interested in that program, you can find details about it at farmer.gov/CFAP and contact your local farm service agency to be able to talk to them about how you might apply for that program, as the deadline for that program is in December 11th. So there's still some time left to apply for that program, December 11th. If you have an interest, and again, farmer.gov/CFAP, you can find out more details there on that one. Now, one of the things I've been talking to with Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue last time he was in town a couple months ago was about where farm income is going here in the state of Nebraska. And farm income, he said, just in general, had been up year over year from 2018 to 2019. And he expects that it'll be up again in 2020 with the help of some of these assistance programs. So that's good news for our farmers and ranchers, because we want to continue to make sure that we have our #1 industry here in the state do well. So that's a lot of the programs we have from the federal government that are helping us out here in the state of Nebraska. And we as well are working to be able to slow the spread of the virus overall with regard to our pandemic response, which is ongoing, and we will continue to monitor that as we go forward. So you all can help out again by reminding your friends and family to have a small holiday gathering here at Thanksgiving. The virus spreads from one person to another person. So avoiding those large groups, this is our 3 C's: avoid the close contacts, the confined spaces, and crowded places. That if you avoid those things, that is something that will help us slow down the spread of the virus. Make sure you're wearing your mask when you go to the store, that you're washing your hands often for 20 seconds at a time, that you're keeping that 6 foot of distance between you and other people. When you go to the store, go by yourself and go only once a week. And a key thing to help us slow down the spread of the virus is stay home when you're sick. That if you have any symptoms, please stay home. Go get tested, but stay home. We don't want you spreading the virus to other people. And of course, respect our rules around quarantine, that if you're exposed to somebody such as I was, that you stay home for those 14 days. That'll be important to helping slow the transmission of the virus from asymptomatic people. So that's a key thing as well. And as always, we remind people that when our local public health departments call, that you leave a little space for grace there. They've got tough jobs. They're trying to keep people healthy. So please treat them with dignity and respect. Now, with regard to agriculture, we want to, a lot of the things that we would normally talk about agriculture have really been replaced with this pandemic, as that's taken some of the front headlines. But it's important that we continue to work to grow agriculture, our state's #1 industry here. It's the heart and soul of what we do here in Nebraska. 25% of folks in the state are employed in an industry that is related to agriculture in some way. It makes up over 20% of our state's economy. So if we're going to continue to grow Nebraska, we have to grow agriculture. And even with this pandemic, we have seen the ability to do that. Now, one of the ways we've done this in the past is through trade missions. Obviously, with the pandemic, we're not able to go on trade missions. We had a number of them scheduled for this year that were postponed because of the pandemic. However, we were able to do a trade mission last year, for example, or a couple trade missions last year. One of the places we went to was Vietnam, and we were able to get a Vietnamese delegation here in the state of Nebraska prior to the pandemic. And that trade delegation signed an MOU to buy about $3 billion worth of our agricultural products over the course of the next couple of years. So that was good news and really demonstrates the value of doing those trade missions. It's about relationships. We were in Vietnam in September. We got the Vietnamese delegation to come back here in February, and that's one of the ways that we were able to sell more of our ag products. So we want to continue to look for ways to be able to do that once the pandemic subsides, and we can go on trade missions again. That will be a key aspect of how we continue to grow. Value-added agriculture, of course, is another key aspect of how we want to continue to grow. And one of the things that we want to do on that front is look for drawing in those industries that will help us with that. One of the big wins we had here in the state was Lincoln Premium Poultry in Costco. That facility was huge. Well, it contributed over $1 billion to our state's economy. and has allowed 100 families approximately to be able to put up those poultry barns, which will allow them to diversify their revenue stream, build equity, and importantly, bring young people back to the family farm. That has really been a great deal for us. And again, we want to continue to see opportunities to be able to do more of that with regard to Lincoln Premium Poultry or anybody else who wants to set up those processing facilities. This year, we've had a good success with schoolers setting up their PetSmart facility in Seward. It's about a $50 million investment, create about 100 jobs to create pet food. But again, leveraging the fact that the supplies are locally available here to bring those in, that's a great deal for us here in Nebraska. And we want to continue to find those opportunities to look for businesses who want to expand here, create more of those value-added agriculture opportunities here in the state of Nebraska. Ingredient also broke ground this as well with their facility that is going to process peas and lentils into protein for nutritional supplements and so forth. So those are a couple of good news stories we've had, and we want to continue to look for ways to be able to do that with regard to value-added agriculture. And of course, our number one value-added agriculture is going to be livestock. What you may have seen in the Journal Star over the weekend, there was a group of physicians. They're going to pick up some billboards, somewhat misleading from the way I look at it, but calling on me to promote beans over beef. And while we've got a great dry bean industry here in the state of Nebraska, we got to remember that beef, for example, is one of the most nutritionally dense food sources we have. It would take you 3 cups of quinoa or 3 cups of lentils to make up what you get out of 3 ounces of beef protein. So again, beef is something that is very healthy for you and should be a part of a balanced diet. And what this really is a group of a national movement to really undermine the beef industry with misinformation, and which ultimately will undermine our way of life here for our Nebraskan farmers and ranchers. And of course, it's again something that attacks our number one industry directly. So again, this is something that we need to continually be educating the public about the benefits of beef and all the other great protein that we grow here in the state of Nebraska, and why it's part of a well-balanced diet, and we want to see people continue to do that. But that's going to be continuing ongoing effort to be able to educate members of the public, even people just here in Lincoln and Omaha. And then again, the third thing we've done with regard to growing agriculture, so the first one was those trade missions, the second one, value-added agriculture. The third is property tax relief. And again, this last legislative session, we were very successful in getting additional property tax relief. Now, this is the number one issue people have talked about since I started running for governor. And in my administration, through the Property Tax Credit Relief Fund, we had taken that fund up nearly double from where it was when I started as governor. When I started as governor, that fund was at about $140 million, and now it's up to $275 million. And in legislation, we got that passed statutorily to be a floor of $275 million, rather than just being an annual appropriation. So we've really got it set in the law there at $275 million, which is great news for all of property taxpayers here in the state. But this last legislative session, we were able to get past LB 1107. And I want to thank Speaker Scheer in particular for his leadership in bringing together a group of senators to find that compromise to be able to get LB 1107 passed. I also want to thank Senator Stinner, who's the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, for his work in pulling that all together. LB 1107 was a great bill that pulled together our property tax relief plan that allows us to put in $375 million of additional property tax relief on top of the $275 million we already have in the Property Tax Credit Relief Fund. This property tax relief will be done through a refundable income tax credit. So you will not, if you pay income taxes here in Nebraska, you will get a credit off of those income taxes. If you do not pay income taxes here in the state of Nebraska, if you end up not owing the state taxes, you will get a check back from the state based upon the property taxes you pay to your local schools. So it'll be prorated. We'll start off at a $125 million minimum and then work it up over the next 3 to 5 years to that $375 million as our state revenues allow for in formula. And so stay tuned for more on that, because there will be more that has to, as we continue to see our revenues here in the state grow, we will want to put more money into that property tax relief program. So what does that mean? Well, we did the calculation that if you were say a farmer in Hamilton County with a 980-acre farm, you'd be seeing over $14,000 in property tax relief, or a 21% break on your property taxes, based upon having that $375 million fully funded and fully phased in, and the $275 million that we have in the property tax credit relief fund. That is over $650 million in annual property tax relief. So that's a great deal for all property taxpayers here in Nebraska, and especially our farmers and ranchers. Now, that doesn't mean our work is done. We have more work to do. There were many other good ideas that we can take up with regard to property tax relief and reform. For example, changing the way we value ag land away from the market sales approach we do today to an income potential approach that a number of the states surrounding us use, such as South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, Kansas, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. They all use this methodology as a more stable way to be able to manage those property tax valuations that can ultimately lead to property taxes. So that's an idea. Tom Brewer also had a great idea about limiting what ag land would pay in new bond issues. So that's another opportunity there. And we'll look for additional ways to provide more property tax relief directly through the different venues we have. So lots of more opportunities for us to be able to continue to provide that property tax relief. In LB 1107, not only do we have the property tax plan, but we also had a renewal of our incentive programs, renew and reform of them, so it makes them more transparent, makes them focused on those high-paying jobs. And so that was good because, again, when we're trying to attract those value-added ag processors, having an incentive program is an important part of how we do that. It's really kind of a checkbox that all those companies look at. If we didn't have one here in Nebraska, we'd be at a competitive disadvantage. So it's good that we got our program renewed because it was set to expire here at the end of the year. We also had the commitment for the next project from UNMC to be in the running for a surge hospital from funded by the Defense Department. So that was another part of LB 1107, which you can see was that compromise package that really pulled all this together. In addition to getting LB 1107 done, we also passed a bill for veterans tax relief. We provided for pandemic relief, flood relief. We provided for tunnel relief to fix the tunnel that collapsed in Wyoming that was serving about 50,000 acres of Nebraska farmland. So we got that that tunnel relief in the bill. We were also able to get our college scholarship program funded so that that scholarship and career ready program can be available to all of our students at community colleges, state colleges, and the University of Nebraska so they can get the education they need to become our future leaders. And then we also passed the most significant pro-life bill we've passed in a decade by ending the just barbaric practice of dismemberment abortion here in our state. So you can see that the legislature, despite the pandemic and despite some very challenging times, with the session ending early in March and then being resumed again in July and finishing in August, that even with all the trying conditions, all the efforts that were going to slow the spread of the virus and the challenge that are had just meeting together, the legislature had a very successful legislative session. And we really appreciate all that their great work, even with those very trying times. So now, I've been talking a lot over the last few minutes here. We covered a lot of ground with a lot of different things. So maybe, Chris, we can just open this up and do a few questions. Or Steve, I guess we're going to go to you. Steve, we're going to do a few questions and answers.
That's right. Thank you, Governor, for being here today and for the update on the pandemic relief and what's going on with that. And also thank you for all of your support of agriculture. You have been a champion for Nebraska farmers and ranchers, and we really appreciate that. First question we have from Megan Schaefer says, Governor, thank you for your support of beef. Do you plan to respond directly to the nonprofit physicians group supporting the Beans Over Beef campaign? Do you have recommendations for others to respond effectively?
Yeah, in fact, I actually, in my press briefing, we started off, or I kind of wrapped up my press briefing by responding back to it that this was really, misinformation, that beef is actually one of your highest sources of nutrition. That I talked about the stat I just gave you all with regard to you have to eat 3 cups of quinoa or 3 cups of lentils. And if anybody's ever tried to eat those things, 3 cups is a lot. You're just, 3 ounces of beef isn't even actually that much, and you get the same nutritional value out of it. So I think part of what we have to do is just continue to educate the public about the values of the protein that we raise here in the state, whether it's beef or pork or chicken. We do a great job here in the state of Nebraska, and these are high quality products that we are distributing all around the world. We are known, for example, for our high quality Nebraska beef. And it's just an education process. Do people understand that? So I think like using tangible examples like 3 cups of quinoa. If anybody's eaten any quinoa, they know 3 cups is a lot versus just 3 ounces of beef. So I think it's an education. I'd certainly encourage AFAN and all the other pro-ag groups out there to respond back to this and really kind of correct the misinformation that's going on out there. Again, this is a national campaign that's really designed to undermine beef. We've got to be out there telling our story because it's not just about beef, it's also about all the protein that we raise here. And we want to make sure that the public has the right information when they're making those nutritional decisions because we've got the right facts on our side.
Great, thank you. One of the young producers that we had right before you mentioned challenges of rural internet. And he actually demonstrated that by glitching out a couple times in his video. But the question is, what are the plans to improve rural internet?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the areas that we took up with the coronavirus relief funds as well as the CARES Act funds. And we put aside, actually we set up a program to do rural broadband. We set aside $40 million. We had providers take us up for about 29 million of that. And this was to do direct connectivity into homes in areas where we knew that we didn't have good connectivity. And one of the interesting stats, if you are going to run your farm with all the modern technology that's available today, you really need the 100 MIPS up and the 100 MIPS down. That's pretty significant. And you think in many parts of our state, we're struggling just to get 25 MIPS down and 3 MIPS up. So it is one of those things that we've got more work to do with regard to the state of Nebraska to build it out. But it's one of the reasons why I made it a priority with our CARES Act money to start that rural broadband. And of course, I also signed the Rural Broadband Task Force legislation a couple of years ago, which came back with some recommendations as well of what we can do on rural broadband. And this is one of the things that we're going to have to continue to look at in the future, what we can do to help build out that infrastructure for rural Nebraska.
Very good. We have a question about what is the state's effort to continue developing rural areas to support livestock production? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that we've got, and I encourage everybody to reach out to their county supervisors and planning boards if they haven't already, is our livestock friendly program. This is a program we've had in place for several years now at the state. We've got over half our counties signed up, but basically it allows you to market your county as open for business when it comes to animal agriculture. It also establishes really the ground rules so that people will know what the zoning, for example, is going to be if they want to come in and start an animal agriculture operation, and that they'll have some certainty around being able to do that in a way that's going to allow them to grow their business. So that's one of the key ways that we here at the state are helping support animal agriculture. Another one is one the Department of Agriculture is working on, and Steve, I know you're familiar with this, is it started out as a Certified Nebraska Beef Program, but now it's Straight from Nebraska, which is a way to promote our Nebraska agricultural products. For example, we really want to brand Nebraska beef around the world as quality second to none, and really highlight that we've just got great features here in the state with regard to our people that do such a fantastic job. Our farmers and ranchers are the original conservationists. I think you're doing the Leopold Award as part of this program, right? And that's just a great program that shows that our farmers and ranchers are looking to take care of their land and their animals. They have that land ethic and they want to pass it on to the next generation. And so we've got to tell that story to be able to get out there with regard to that. So we want to promote that. That's part of what we do through the state. But those are some of the things that we want to brand. We also, of course, have great genetics here. We've got great environment, abundant water resources. So we want to continue to tell that story as part of what we're promoting. And then, of course, our trade missions are another key way that we promote agriculture. Getting out there to be able to go overseas and sell our story or tell our story. And when we go overseas on those trade missions, our best ambassadors are our farmers and ranchers. They do a fantastic job of talking to our clients overseas, our customers. And there's a lot of misinformation out there with regard to agriculture. Again, we just talked about this beans over beef thing these physicians are promoting. But a lot of people think there's big corporate farms overseas, think there's big corporate farms here in our country. And when we have our farmers and ranchers go out there and say, hey, over 95% of our farms and ranches are family owned, that really is not what they're expecting. And when we have people who can actually tell that story, that's awesome. So if you're thinking about joining a future trade mission as a producer, we would welcome you, because our farmers and ranchers are our best ambassadors. So when we can do it, we got to get back out there and do more trade missions. And then, as I mentioned, value-added agriculture, promoting livestock, but also making sure we're finding those processing facilities like the Lincoln Premium Poultry one is a great way to be able to grow livestock here in our state. Just a little factoid on that. One of the reasons that Lincoln Premium Poultry is so pleased with what's going on here in Nebraska is that their weight gain for the chickens is actually faster than what they're experiencing in the southern part of the United States. And it's because we have such great quality feed here. And so that's another advantage. If they can turn those chickens around faster, that's an advantage for their company as they're producing those chickens. So another great reason to have them here. And then, of course, we're going to have to continue to look for property tax relief as a benefit to all of our farmers and ranchers going forward as well. And I kind of talked about that already too.
Absolutely. That's so true what you said about value-added agriculture and reusing our products here in the state before we send them off to other things. And you mentioned those trade missions. Can you talk a little bit about, domestic mission? I don't know that they're called missions, but, as we try and grow the demand for Nebraska beef and Nebraska products within the U.S. As well as, outside.
Yeah, I think, I mentioned talking about how we, just again, this whole misinformation campaign run by this national group around, trying to badmouth beef. What we need to do is we need to be out there in those other markets as well. I led kind of one of those domestic trade missions to New York, talk to writers and reporters about, again, the benefits of beef and how it's raised in Nebraska, again, trying to dispel some of these notions that the groups that are opposed to animal agriculture are putting out there. So we've got to be out there telling our side of the story and really letting people know what a great value we have here for them. So we do need to be out there. I've also done, domestic trade missions that were not agriculture related specifically, but gone to places like Seattle to recruit. Well, I guess that kind of was because we were trying to recruit Lincoln Premium Poultry, which we ultimately were successful with, but also going to Silicon Valley to recruit some high-tech companies. So we do want to travel around. In fact, one of the things I've told Tony Goins is to really be looking at where we can do additional trade missions after this pandemic allows for, we worked our way through this pandemic and travel really allows for it better, because I think if you see what other states have done and versus the quality of life we have here in Nebraska, we should have the opportunity to be able to get more businesses and people to move here just because we've really tried to strike that balance of preserving our hospital capacity and letting Nebraskans live a more normal life, and haven't had some of the shutdowns and restrictions they've had in places like New York, California, or Chicago. So I think we've got some opportunity there to even draw more businesses here after we work our way through this pandemic.
Definitely. Yeah. Kind of one final question for you. And you mentioned Director Tony Goins of the Department of Economic Development. We have the pleasure of working with him and his staff, with Jim Macy and his staff with DEE, as well as Director Steve Wellman and Department of Agriculture. And can you talk just a little bit about your philosophy of how those departments should be working for the betterment of the state and the betterment of the ag industry?
Okay, Steve, nobody actually sent that one in. You just made that one up because it's a layup question. That was a softball.
Well, hit it out of the park then.
Right. So actually, one of the things that we really do well here at the state of Nebraska is the different departments work together well as a team. And I'm just going to use the example of Lincoln Premium Poultry that we've talked about a couple of times here, because that was a huge win for us here in the state. Like I said, $1 billion impact on our state's economy. And that really demonstrates it's a team effort. No company moves to a generic place called Nebraska. They only move to a specific location. And so that team started with a team in Fremont, their Economic Development Council, their Chamber of Commerce, the city, all got together. I was actually in that meeting when we had the first meeting with executives from Costco and Lincoln Premium Poultry. And they had over 100 people from Fremont show up to welcome them. I was blown away. I've been doing town halls. I couldn't get 100 people to show up at my town hall. They got 100 people to show up for this meeting to welcome those executives. It was outstanding. And it made an impression on those executives. They told me afterwards. That made them feel welcome. And that's a big thing. And I know it was true for Hendricks Genetics when they chose Grand Island. One of the reasons they chose Grand Island is because they felt welcomed by the community of Grand Island to set up their hatchery there. So being a welcoming community is the first step. And it, again, requires that team approach from the local community leaders. But then it's also a team approach from the state as well. So for example, we worked with the Department of Agriculture. In fact, Jessica Coltman, who now works at Lincoln Premium Poultry, we hired her through the Department of Agriculture to really work with all of our agencies and really get out to the communities and talk to them about some of the objections they had with having that facility and helping to educate them about why their objections really weren't founded. That we had great things in place to be able to protect the water quality as one example, and so forth. So we really made it a team effort between the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Environment and Energy, which had to work on the permitting process, Department of Transportation, which was working, and actually we got a federal grant to do a bypass there that's going to be helpful for getting that, to getting that facility. So the Department of Transportation was involved. The Department of Labor was involved with regard to workforce. So, and then of course the Department of Economic Development overall with regard to our incentives. So it really was a team approach by the state with all the different agencies who were going to have an impact on Lincoln Premium Poultry to get them to come to the state. And that's one of the things that I encourage my agencies all the time, is to work together as a team to address all the needs of our customers who are looking to expand here in the state of Nebraska. And that's how we can leverage our competitive advantage as being a small state, where you can really get to those leaders and those agencies pretty easily versus a state like, say, California, which you'd never get to talk to any of those people, much less the governor. But here in the state, one of the things we sell is, hey, you'll get to talk to all the decision makers in our agencies. You can have the cell phone number of the governor. You can talk to me directly. And I got to tell you, that makes an impression when, I call a CEO and say, hey, we're glad you're considering Nebraska. This is my cell phone number. Call me anytime you want. It's the advantage of doing business with a small state like Nebraska. We're going to be responsive. We're going to be customer oriented. And it's one of the reasons why we got Lincoln Premium Poultry. So we want to get other companies' business because we've got that team approach, and it does make a difference. People want to know they're in a state that's business friendly. It's easy to do business with because that regulatory red tape is really a job killer. It really slows processes down. It's kind of the invisible enemy there, if you want to think about it that way, if you're a company. And knowing that you've got somebody you can talk to in the state to be able to work through those issues makes a big difference for those companies making a decision to come here.
It absolutely does. And I know it from firsthand experience of working with Hendricks, working with LPP and other companies, that they're so impressed that when we say, well, yeah, you can talk to the head of this department. We can even get you the governor if you want to visit with him. And they a lot of times are just blown away by that openness for us to talk to them. So we appreciate that.
Yep, and it was interesting when we had the meeting with Hendricks. They were talking about how they were basically being kicked out of Europe, and they were just shocked that we were like, yeah, no, we want you here. They're like, they expected to come here and find government leaders that were resistant to them putting up their facilities, and instead they found leaders who wanted to have them here.
Absolutely, yes. Well, thank you again for your time today and all of your support of Nebraska agriculture.
My pleasure, Steve. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the great work that AFAN does to be able to help promote animal agriculture here in Nebraska. It is a huge part of our overall strategy of growing agriculture. As I said at the outset, if we're going to grow Nebraska, we have to grow agriculture. It's our #1 industry here in the state, so we appreciate all that you do to help us out in that mission.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you have a good rest of your week.
Yep, you too. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Okay. Well, I think that kind of concludes the meeting for the year. Absolutely looking forward to doing a lot more work, hopefully in person in the next year. Lots of events coming up, we hope. We're planning on things, and we'll just kind of work through just like this one. If we hit a snag and we need to go to a virtual event, we have that capability. But from an AFAN standpoint, from the staff, please reach out to us if you have questions, if you have things that you want to work on, ways that we can help you, whether it's looking to raise your profile through social media or through open houses or lunch events. Those are the types of things that we're capable of doing, and look forward to working with all of you in the next year. So with that, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope the holidays are great for you. And if you're looking for us, I guess I should just remind you that all of our contact information is on our website, becomeafan.org. Again, feel free to reach out to any of us, and look forward to working with you. So thank you for that. Thank you for being partners and supporters, and we'll look forward to a better year in 21.